Quick video on galling. Galling. I'm going to do quite a few videos on bolts and connections, as it quite often is most frustrating for anyone installing anything, including putting together engines, where you're popping bolts, etc. If you look at the parent metal, the metal that you're screwing into with your bolt, in theory, the parent metal is not as strong as your bolt. Your Class 8 bolt, your Class 8 bolts, or Grade 8 bolts, rather, have a Rockwell hardness of everywhere from C33 to C39. That's into the 100 plus thousand, and we are talking about that point. We are talking about the surface area, which is the core hardness. We're down to the teeth at that point. So when you're screwing this in, if you ever get stripping, this is a cutaway, and the manufacturer gave me permission to use their company's information here. So with that said, let me share first. This is the bolt, theboltdepot.com. And you go to thread galling. They sell products. They're a pretty nice company as far as allowing me to use their products, and etc. to explain in detail what's going on. So galling. You've got dirty threads. You've got trash inside here. When you're starting to torque down, you think you're at the bottom and you just keep torquing and it somehow magically breaks your bolt. Well, more than likely, you're stuck. You've had a cold weld is what it's called. It locks it into the threads there. You're done. It won't go down anymore. Think of it as a weld. It now welded itself. When I say it won't go down anymore, it's actually elongating. It won't go down anymore. It's locked itself in place. It won't create a screw effect going down is what I mean. It won't create the shim or screw effect going down. It won't rotate. And it won't rotate because in here some metals of some nature became like a shim, a wedge, locked it in here in the teeth so it no longer will rotate. That's it. You apply your extra torque. You then start to twist the metal, and then it breaks free, and now you're done. Ironically, or not so, it shears mostly right at the top. Right here is where you normally get it. You don't, even though you went through a head bolt, for example, and it doesn't break in the middle. Its forces are translated right about to there where it meets the threads and starts rotating. So out here, you'll probably get it right there is where it last locked in. And as I explained to you, or explained to someone, if you look at this, you would think all of the forces are equal here, but it has been declared that 37% is roughly in the first thread, and about 4 threads down, you get the rest of the deal, and the last is sort of like an extra thread, if you will. Extra 2 threads come out the outside. It's tapered off. Now, so the most biting, the most effect takes place right there at the top as you enter your bolt bolt hole or your screw hole, your threaded connection. So that's where you're getting your most forces, and that's where your shear and breaking takes place. In this case, you're torquing and rotating and twisting the bolt off. So how do you get it out? You try an easy out, but that won't work because, well, more than likely it won't work because you've got a weld in here. It's welded in. It's locked itself in. And the more torque you apply, the more you locked it in. So you drill down the center of the core, trying to get as close as you can to these teeth without destroying any of it. As you can take note, see the gap there. You got some margin of error to work with, but you want to stay inside your core of your screw, if you will. And then you're going to try to chisel that out, knock it in, etc. to get this out. Do not be tempted to cut across the threads too much. I've seen people do that. I'd rather you still work on this very patiently to get it out. After you drill again, see how close you are to the edge, maybe walk your drill over, and then try chiseling without destroying the teeth at all. That's your ideal. You can try the heating technique at one point and see if you can get this to heat up and break free and see if that works for you. Now galling, so that's what's happening there. You're locking it in, you're twisting it off, you're tearing it off, and it's as simple as that. It is as simple as that. Your Rockwell hardness, you want to know what bolt you're working with, a number 8. And so if you're working with a number 8, you're really going to have to, get a bit that's a hardened bit that can drill down in this. That's going to usually be your higher quality carbide bits. I think I'll do more videos on the carbide bits. Now we're not done with the Bolt Depot. We're going to use them in some more future videos and some of their data. I'm going to actually have a bolt similar to that to show some data. What else can I show you from the Bolt Depot? We will not deal with that yet. Let's see what I can share with you. The Bolt Depot, just give them a little marketing. They've got your come over to the Bolt Depot and you can get to name your screws. If you're not sure about them, here they are here. Everything from what appears to be a castle, they call it slotted, and then this is your castle. You can see the difference in that little U-shaped castle and slotted. I often call that a castle myself. They call it slotted. I kind of like that. Maybe we'll talk about two-way reversible nuts. The little nut in the middle, the lockable two-way directional nut. Reusing nuts that can't be reused. But while you're here, come over to their site, and you're going to get a free tape measure from them, a printable tape measure, and one more thing. You're going to get a free U.S. metric thread size bolt. Thread buys. You print to scale. Make sure you print to scale. And you'll have your bolt chart right here. And you line your bolt up to it. Incidentally, this chart can work if you just use your bolt in front of the screen. So if you have this on your phone, I find it does work pretty well. I'm looking at a 14 right now. And it only matches with the 14 when I scale up using my eyes and coming in using the peak, the very tips of it. Now, that's not, we'll go into more on this. But I just want to share that. I'll give you the 2 links for this, a little freebie. And I'll give you, yeah, that's a long video. All this stuff is a long video I'm working on for you guys. Threading, etc. Oh, well, I'm here. Got to hit it then. And that way I can get rid of some tabs. Thread chasing and restoring male or female fasteners. This is from a 2014 article that's still out there. And it says how you can use these inexpensive set of chasers from Summit Racing. I do not recommend them. Your threads are classed. It's class A, 1A, 1A, 2B, etc. 2B, class 2 is what you want. Unless you know this to be classed as a class 2, don't go running this stuff down there. If it's not your exact thread count, then don't do it. Now, the guy's talking about auto stuff, and he's actually saying do not use the tappers, because you might rethread. Well, that's 100% wrong. You will not rethread if you pick the proper thread count. So if you know what bolt came out of it, that is the proper thread count to go back in there. The exact one is the one that will go back in there. Make sure you're using, that if you use a Japanese car, that they're not using JIC. Make sure you're using that specific thread count, that they have a pitch that will match up. So you want to make sure your pitch matches up. And unless you're retapping, then it doesn't matter. Just they're going to match up automatically. Don't ask me how we got to MPT here saying to use it. That's National Pipe Thread. This is for gas, etc. This is tapered, and it should nowhere be near your car. Even though it says 7/16, this is 7/16 18. 7/16 on a car is a 14. They're not 18s. They're 14 threads, and you do not want to get this wrong, this pitch. Now, who else sells that product? Is Summit sells it. Now, unless Summit declares it's a class 2, I stay away from this. Now, I kind of like the idea, though, that the notch in here will help you remove galling. You will have to get it out with some pressured air or something. Make sure you wear a mask so it doesn't blow back on you. But I don't picture these coated-looking materials as class 2 or class 2B. Material. I don't visualize that. I could be wrong, but I couldn't find it on their website either. So I'd stay clear of these chasers, because the last thing you want to do is wrench one of those in there and give yourself a new thread. With that said, if you want to really pay attention, that's metric. If you really want to pay attention, you'll find out quarter 20. Yeah, 3/8, 16, 7/16, 14. Yeah, I don't know what metric is, why it said metric down there. The person's comments. Okay. If you really cadmium plated, yeah, I definitely wouldn't use anything plated to do any testing in there. To do any, you might add the cadmium to your. You might add galling by adding something with just coating on it. So no, do not use thread chasers in there. Clean up a good bolt and get in there. And I'll have more videos on how you can actually get some awesome um, um, kits. Now, none of these, if they're not rated, stay away from them. Stay away. For example, I was going to do a part of the video I was doing earlier was Harbor Freight Tools here. They have a kit that's worth $80 plus, $85. This is their instructions for that Harbor Freight tool kit, and it is not rated. There is no class rating on this, so there's nothing about this that is worth $84 when it comes down to your having to rethread something. It could be the range of it can be all over the place. So unless you have a go or no go test kit on this to check it for its accuracy, I'd stay far and clear from this. I do have a go and no go test kit. I will go there in a few days, perhaps. I'll stop by there and use my go and no go. That's it's very accurate. It's like a $200 part. Now the one I'll take there is just a 3/8. I won't take. I have a couple of them, but I'll only take the 3/8, and I'll actually put the 3/8 on this guy. I'll take the kit apart, do the 3/8, and perhaps I'll update you saying, hey, look, this one turned out to be a great 3/8. Nevertheless, I don't know the hardness of the core hardness of this, so we don't know if it will break real easily screwing into retapping, say, a block. So the hardness counts, and this is not forthcoming with their data. There's nothing on here about hardness, etc. So yeah, you want to stay with those cheap kits and take advantage of me. Get a hold of me, and I'll talk to you about the hardness, etc. This has a core hardness that really matters, and that's how you really judge this stuff. Going back to that, you have I'm going to share the website on this one, and the website is this Stranger, and you have your okay. There's your different setting. You don't need it about NC. It's just a standard coarse thread. Great. That's not what I wanted to show you then. And bulletin. Ignoring the bulletin. Now this is Relief and Nestor Company, R&N. TAP recommended for Class 2, Class 3, Class 2B, and Class 3B. These are the class that I'm referring to. You want to be 2B at least, and you don't want to crisscross your threads. So if your engine block, for example, has a 2B thread, not a 1, Class 1, then you want to use a Class 2A bolt, a 2A tap to do it. So you line up perfectly. Those thread chasers, they're, I don't know the quality of them. They're not disclosing it. There's a minimum maximum range on this stuff. You can see it in the thousands, for example. Let's see, we get a class on that. Do we have one? This is G1. We're not there. You don't want to come out of class, even though you think, oh, this is even a better class. It's more accurate. Well, yes, but now you're rethreading, and they won't match. So you need to match your threads. You need to stay within your class of what you're trying to secure. This is interesting. APR bolts. I'm going to finish watching many of their videos, and I'm going back down the line of this one also with this non-retentional bolts. Perhaps I'll get to that again. But let's look at the 3/8, 16th bolt, and grade 8. This is also part of your head engine for your head bolts for a Chevy, small block Chevy, which is what everyone's doing. Plated is that coating we're talking about of some type, but we're usually using it non-plated, and I mean not even without rust. And you're going to be at 44 pounds of torque, and your clamp load 69.75. This is based on clamp loads based on area too. Fastenal, we'll give you the link to this. Fastenal, if you're using a 7/16 bolts, which we know that these guys are 7/16, and 3/8. A 7/16 bolt, coarse thread, you're going to do dry at 70 pounds. If you look at the requirements for oh, that's a beautiful chart. I'll get to that. If you look at the requirements for torquing, that's a go and no-go thread, one of these guys. I wanted to get that to you, but requirements for torquing, yeah, let's close that out. For torquing the engine, it's at 70, was it one tab over? All right, it's 70 and 40 pounds, 45 pounds. Well, here's the ARP bolt. ARP is not subject to the same torquing rules. They have a higher, well, at their 170 bolt, it's the same. 7/16 for 70 pounds of torque. But if you buy their next graded bolt that's rated from 190 to 200, same size bolt, you now have to change your torque to get it to get the elongation, the same clamping force. You now have to increase your torque, which now puts more stress on your block threads. So an ARP bolt is not necessarily the right thing to do. You don't know the hardness of your block, and if you want to say, I'll just get a better, even stronger bolt, 220, well, no, your block's got to be able to take that 90 pounds of torque force also. The threads do. Now, let's look at I like this yield scale that they have here. I try to find it somewhere else. But this is TTY bolt specifications and installations, whoever they may be. So you can see we're down here, hopefully, that we never make it into the yield zone because we don't come back once we hit the yield. Right there is nice, but you're no longer elastic, and you're there. You're now in the, you're done. You're no longer coming back. So ideally, you want to stay in here, and those bolts. I'm trying to show you if you can reuse bolts, and not that. Don't pay attention to that because that's scaled. Here's another one of proof loading on 3/8 and 7/16. Remember, we're at grade 8 when you look at these the scales, and you're at its operating range basically of 12/8 and 9300, and it's going to fail in tension. Well, tension loads rather. I'm sorry, it won't fail. 11/6 and 15/9. Here, let's go to the proof go and no-go gauges. This is how you test threads, whether your accuracy of a 2A thread. Your new thread that you purchase, you can check it with a 2A. And of course, Class 3, you just want to stay away from those. You just don't need Class 3. They're not part of it. So we're not going to go into that discussion about Class 3. Again, this is part of my ludicrous stuff here. They're saying don't use taps. That's ludicrous. Use a tap, and in fact, I'd recommend you use a tap to avoid you popping bolts and torque. I recommend you tap all of them and blow them out, clean them out, and really check them. Spend your time checking those threads. Don't take them for granted. This is a junk kit. It's not. I don't care if it's inexpensive or not. You need to match threads. And so let's just get rid of that article. All this stuff matters. You have that cheap chasing kit, if you will, and you come down here and it's not accurate as a 2A. It's equivalent to 1A, or it's not rated at all. You just get random parts coming out of there, and you're not matching up. You will be deforming the threads. I'm glad I have this handy. Imagine if use that chaser and you knock off 0.2 of a thousandth of an inch off of here. You're changing everything. You keep doing that with that chaser, and you can ruin it. Ruin your specifications. Don't do it. Don't do it. So what do we have here? The engineer's toolbox. Same thing. These are multiple. This is national pipe thread. Oh yeah, this is what I was trying to show with that guy saying that you can use 3/8. But why would he even put that with mechanicals? Because I was going to show there is not. 3/8 in national pipe thread is 18 count. Why would he even talk about that on an engine site, if you will? So my point is, be careful with these sites. You might get the data mixed up that they're trying to get across. He did state that, if you're dealing with NPT thread, but that's confusing to people who might have seen the 3/8, thinking, oh, yeah, cool, he's telling me it's okay to use it. It is not. The 3/8 on that engine is going to be, on a coarse thread, is going to be 14. Or is that 12? 3/8 on an engine is 3/8. They make me have to tap. Just so you know, if you use a scale when I give it to you, you're going to have to tap out a couple of times on it. So 3/8 UNC. I'm not 11th. I'm not liking that. Hold on. Yeah, this side is very, very non-responsive. Come on. Let me reload the site. I accept. It gives you access. Let's jump to 3/8. Maybe they kicked me out. UNC and Class 8. Okay, so it's 16. 3/8 and 7/16 is 14. There we go. There's my inverted thinking. So it's 3/8 is 16. You see that? There is no 7/16 on National Pipe Thread. But you see that you can get in trouble. So let's bounce on that. Let's get out of that. All right, I think I'm shared all the data. This one is still yet to come. You don't need to know this yet. Oh, maybe perhaps. It's a hardness scale about nuts. 2H is how this is really read. So you know what's going to fail first if you do start over twerking. But which threads? But it's not it. It's galling. You got galling going on. Galling, like the bird. I like to put the U in it, and I got to stop playing around like that. I'm going to give you these charts. And where's my beautiful galling? Where are you? Right there. That's what's going on. All right, take care. Wish you guys all the best.